It's time for All Hands on Tech.
Climb on board as we explore all the amazing things happening in Nova Scotia's tech sector. Each episode, we'll chat with local experts to uncover the secrets of what makes Nova Scotia the best place for collaboration, innovation, and creativity.
All Hands on Tech is proudly produced by Digital Nova Scotia, the industry association for Nova Scotia's growing tech sector.
Welcome back to All Hands on Tech. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Ashley. There's no question that Nova Scotia's digital sector is strong and continuing to grow. And a relatively new campaign launched by Dalhousie University called Here We Code is an opportunity to celebrate that growth, ensure the momentum continues, while also identifying where improvements can be made.
Becca Rawcliffe is the Director of Engagement and Communications for Dalhousie's Faculty of Computer Science. And she's been one of the driving forces behind the Here We Code campaign. Welcome to the show, Becca.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. We're really excited to, have this conversation with you. There's certainly, a lot to talk about when we're talking about digital in Nova Scotia. But let's just start at the beginning, for folks who've seen some of your posters around town or on the Dalhousie campus, what is the main message that you want people to take away from this campaign and kind of where did it come from?
Yeah, so I'll go back to the beginning and where this came from.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last 5 years or so, Nova Scotia, like many places in the world, has seen a huge tech boom. So whether that's more the number of companies moving here, like big name tech companies, the number of startups in the tech space starting here, or the number of students choosing to study technology-related programs in the province has grown significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And we've certainly seen, unprecedented growth in the number of students that we have in the Faculty of Computer Science at Dalhousie. And the province has recognised this as a key opportunity for the province in terms of economic and social growth. And there's been a lot of work done on many fronts over the last few years to kind of grow and also take advantage of that opportunity. And back in early 2021, the province announced funding to a number of post-secondary institutions to kind of grow and enhance computer science education. And Dalhousie was one of the institutions that received that funding. We received most of that funding, actually. And so we were presented with this real opportunity to do something really meaningful, as well as grow our student numbers and our faculty numbers and grow our research output. We kind of started to think about what we could do that was bigger than Dalhousie. And so working with partners on and off campus, we came up with the idea behind the Here We Code campaign. And what we want to do with the Here We Code campaign is really make this a point of pride for the whole of the province and to show everyone from, industry, from high school students, from parents, that there is a place for everyone in technology in Nova Scotia, and this is a really good place to be right now if you are interested in taking advantage of the opportunities that technology affords. So that's kind of where it came from, and it's really a movement that we hope will connect people across different populations, across different industries, to really think about how we can take advantage of digital and the opportunities and really position Nova Scotia as a place to come and, be part of that community. Halifax is one of North America's fastest growing tech hubs. It's one of Canada's fastest growing cities. So it's really, and digital does play a big part within that growth. Just taking advantage of it and showing people who may not have historically thought that technology was for them or computer science was for them, that, it can be.
That's so exciting. We're definitely seeing people, like you said, who didn't really think that there was a place in tech for them. The growth of it is showing people other angles where they can kind of slip into it.
For sure. And a big, something we've talked about, you might have seen some of the, bus shelter ads around Here We Code. We did a campaign that was kind of showing the intersection of digital and less disciplines that you might not think would be digital. Right. So healthcare, the oceans, agriculture. So it's kind of showing people that even if you don't think you are interested in technology, you might be interested in how technology can be applied to an area that you are really interested in, like, you know,
which is basically everything else
cleaner,
at this point.
cleaner oceans, or, you know, better healthcare, those kind of things. But also showing people who have been historically like left out of technology. So, you know, there are issues still within the province with some communities not having access to the internet, which is a real barrier today, especially since COVID and everything becoming digital. So showing people in those populations that actually, you know, there's huge opportunities if this is the path you want to take. You know, starting salaries for graduates out of university are crazy. And, you know, not just about money, it's like an opportunity to really shape and change the world.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of opportunity there, even in terms of like physical disabilities and being able to work from home. And if we can access, if all communities can have access to that better Wi-Fi connection, there's plenty of opportunity for people to care for themselves better.
Yeah, 100%. And then, you know, the applications of technology for helping people who have disabilities, for example, like I've seen a number of things in the media recently, and I know a team actually at Dalhousie were working on something like this a few years ago, you know, options where people can just think and then their brain triggers technology that helps them switch lights on.
So wild.
That's wild.
Or switch the TV on and things like that. Like the number of applications like that are genuinely helping people are crazy.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say, you know, we talk about tech a lot, but I first did hear about Here We Code by seeing that bus shelter ad.
I did too.
I saw it and I was interested, and I went and I Googled it. So there's still a place.
Your marketing efforts are working.
Yes,
Yeah, I
definitely.
know. The bus shelter ads, I think we've spoken about that over the years, and it seems really outdated, but I think that was probably the most effective
Interesting.
piece of marketing that we've done around this campaign.
Yeah.
So super interesting.
And it's kind of interesting from like a digital marketing space
Right.
And
to
this
choose
is not
to do that.
digital at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also, where's your audience? If it's
Yeah.
people wanting to get in on that ground level and explore a potentially different option, like maybe they are the people taking the bus or walking, or I mean, our city's very walkable as well. So like you walk by, you see those. Yeah, very effective.
Yeah, and I think, you know, going back to the kind of people who didn't necessarily know that they you know, don't know what they don't know. I think we do find as a, you know, an education institution that is education faculty that's all about computer science, we do still see that there's a big disconnect between the understanding of what computer science is, particularly with youth in Nova Scotia, where coding, for example, is not really well integrated into the curriculum yet. And teachers and guidance counsellors don't necessarily across the board fully grasp what computer science is. So we do have, it's still a little bit of a battle, honestly, like kind of getting that generation to appreciate that their laptop or their smartphone is computer science. So they might understand what technology is because they're using it every day, but they don't necessarily see the connect between that and computer science. And I think there's still a lot of stereotypes associated with computer science, and the types of people that go into computer science, that it can be a barrier. So it's trying to break that down as well.
Well, conversations like this hopefully help as well. So before, we do have some questions to ask you, but we do want to first do some rapid fire questions.
Yeah,
just to
go
to know
for it.
you a
more
little
about
better.
you. Yeah. So I'll kick this off. Let's start off with, what's your favorite thing about Nova Scotia?
It's a great question. So I'm from the UK.
Okay.
I'm from the Manchester area, so much bigger city than Halifax. I moved here in 2017, so I've been here for almost 6 years. I think my favourite thing is being on the ocean, and that probably sounds, you know, I'm sure that's many people's favourite thing, but when you don't come from somewhere where you can see the ocean every single day, I have to stop and kind of remember that that's like a really big benefit that not everyone gets. So
I feel that. I'm from Winnipeg originally, so there was no ocean by me. And yeah, when I drive by it, I just have to stop and remember, like, wow, you know, it's beautiful. Yeah. And to try to get out to the beach more often, right?
Yeah.
Because we're so close.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
As a born and raised maritimer and someone who's always been close to the ocean, it doesn't get old. It's quite a force. It's incredible for a reason.
Even just coming, I live in Dartmouth, but even just coming across the bridge every day and seeing the ocean is still, it doesn't get old. Yeah,
we're pretty lucky here.
Yeah, we are definitely. And whenever I have friends and family from the UK come and visit, they absolutely love it here.
You get to show off a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, second question. How do you unplug from work mode?
What do I do? Well, my husband and I are very into board games.
Cool.
So this is a thing that started a few years ago, and then COVID kind of acted as a catalyst in terms of our board game obsession. So we own over 100 board games.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's your favorite? What's your most played?
There's a few that people, unless they were into board games, probably wouldn't know what they were. But
there's a lot of board games.
There are a lot. Like, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
And I'll give a little plug to the Boardroom Game Cafe on Barrington Street, 'cause we love to go there.
Very cool.
But other than that, traveling, like, obviously that's suffered over the last few years, but we're big travelers as well. So eating, drinking,
all good things.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, we have one more rapid fire question. Is there something that you're really looking forward to that's happening soon?
I'm having a baby, actually, in February. So
congratulations.
I guess I should say that.
That's your biggest news, surely.
Yeah, so personally, I guess that. So yeah, that's happening in, February. Who knows? Maybe sooner. I don't know.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
I mean,
that would
that,
obviously
really.
be a big highlight. Yeah.
Like, there's nothing else. This is like the biggest, best news ever. So
It doesn't get any bigger.
Yeah.
That is very cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, well, I guess we'll start off with some bigger questions then. So, it's everywhere and in unexpected places. That is the first line when you visit Here We Code online. We, of course, really like that, but we are a little bit biased. Can you tell us a little bit more about this initiative?
Yeah, so I mean, I've kind of given the background and the history, and the whole unexpected places piece goes back to that. Like, technology and digital is everywhere. Like, every single industry is being impacted, and organization is being impacted by technology and digital innovation. With COVID, that has been like, that's been sped up so much because everything went online, and if people couldn't survive using digital tools and didn't have digital skills, then businesses were collapsing, people were losing work. So that's been a real catalyst, and I think that it's unavoidable, and organizations that historically would not have considered themselves to be tech companies are now tech companies. Like, all of the big banks are now tech companies, and I think one of the big banks is the biggest tech employer in Canada.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of that whole, it's everywhere and it's in unexpected places, is everywhere. And one of the big drivers behind the initiative was, as I mentioned earlier, it was to kind of bring everyone together to really showcase the opportunities. And we're an academic institution, but so we're kind of in the middle of this talent pipeline, and there aren't enough, that we aren't graduating enough computer science students to fill the number of technology related roles that there are in this province. And that's kind of where, the funding to expand our programs came from, is we really need to be graduating more students so that more companies can expand here and open here. But there's a huge talent gap, and that's not unique to Nova Scotia. That's being felt everywhere in the world. So it's really an awareness as to the opportunities, and that there is a place for everyone, and that if we all come together, like industry, post-secondary education, the education system, like P-12 system, like we really need to work together to make sure that we have enough people going into this as a career, so that we can, as a province, continue to grow and take advantage of the opportunity. So it's kind of a bit of a rallying cry, I guess, for people to kind of come together and showcase like what we have to offer here.
Yeah, and like you said, part of that is showing people what tech actually is and what that involves.
Exactly. And that's, you know, like I say, it's something we always struggle with, because unless you have those like really like exciting examples of what technology can do, it's easy to think that but computer science certainly is people sitting in a dark room on
in
their own
basement.
in your basement coding, very much something which is for people who identify as male, and that's just not the case. So it's kind of us not just on our own, but for the whole of the good of the province, to kind of overcome some of those stereotypes and
Absolutely.
get more diverse talent involved.
So a little bit of a segue. You talked a bit about how quickly and how important it was for people to transition, especially over COVID, and kind of realize that getting on board with tech was so important. So the digital world is constantly changing, growing, and moving forward. What's your favorite part about being in this community?
Yeah, so I mean, I am not a computer scientist at all. Like, honestly, thought all of the stereotypes were true about computer science until I started working in a faculty of computer science. And what I find so exciting is how much it's changed and how far we've come, even in the time that I've been I've been in my role or in the faculty for almost 6 years, and how much has changed. Like, we do have so much diversity, and you can see there's so many organisations out there in the province working with youth, particularly youth from communities that have been left out of tech historically. And it's really exciting to see that shift and to see so many more diverse people and perspectives entering the industry. So I find that really exciting. And I find it exciting, like the opportunities with it, because they really are endless and they're not going anywhere. So to be involved in a discipline that is really at the forefront of like the innovation that's going to drive not just Nova Scotia forward but the world forward is really, really exciting to see.
So obviously this is a Dalhousie University campaign. So just curious, like, what unique perspectives and resources come from being a university-led movement?
Yeah, so I've, alluded to this whole talent pipeline idea, and this is really where this came from. As a post-secondary institution, we're in the middle of the talent pipeline that starts in P12. We're kind of in the middle, and then industry or whatever the future holds for our graduates is at the end. And we graduate as like Dalhousie Faculty of Computer Science graduates the vast majority of computer science or technology graduates in Atlantic Canada. So we have a big part to play in that ecosystem and in that pipeline. But we also have a responsibility. So we have a responsibility to educate youth as to what computer science is and what the opportunities are. But we also have a responsibility to work with industry to make sure that we are equipping our students with the right, knowledge and skills that they need to be successful in the workforce. So I think being that kind of in the middle of the pipeline, that kind of provides us access to the other ends of the pipeline to act as that almost like facilitator. So we make sure that we're working together to graduate our future workforce and then try and encourage them to stay here, hopefully. So I guess that's what we have. We also have huge research output in technology, where we're working on many projects with industry on applied research projects. So we do have that real expertise to help impact organizations and the community through our research. So but yeah, I think the talent piece is where we really come into play, and what we can do to make sure that we are creating a sustainable talent pipeline for the province.
Right, because you have that unique perspective of when students come to university, like you can see where there maybe were gaps before they got to university, and then obviously working with the government and the curriculum to try and maybe get them up to speed before they enter university.
Yeah, 100%. And then, on the other side, like I said, with industry, like working with industry to make sure that we are actually teaching them the things that they need in the workplace. And we're not just teaching them things and then like kind of releasing them without without being well-rounded individuals who can go and actually make a positive impact.
So like with that said, just because tech is always changing, are you like changing the curriculum often within the faculty?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do speak to particularly industry. Like some of our programs are particularly industry driven. So an example would be a couple of our master's programs. We have research master's programs, but we also have professional master's programs that are more so equipping students to enter the workforce. And some of those students might not come from computer science backgrounds, they may come from other backgrounds. But we do work with industry. The faculty has an industry advisory at board. So we do speak to industry to make sure that we know what industry needs, because things are obviously rapidly changing in technology. Like, things are out of date very quickly. So that's definitely important, but definitely something that I think we would like to do more of. So working with industry is, always a big priority for us.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it's a big priority. Like, they would be happy to engage in those conversations as well.
Yeah, they get themselves set up for success that way as well.
Yeah, 100%. I guess the other thing I kind of like to say about this being short is a Dalhousie initiative. We kind of kick-started it. But we do also acknowledge there are lots of other post-secondary education institutions in the province who are also educating the next generation of computer scientists or, technologists. I don't know if that's the right word. But, we also, with this movement, this Here We Code movement, would love it if they also kind of took this Here We Code campaign and used it as their own to help them attract more students, because ultimately the more students that are interested in technology and in computer science, the more workers we have at the end of it who will hopefully stay here. So while we started it, we're not precious about completely
Happily
owning this. Like, we would love other people to use it.
That's amazing. So if anyone was interested in getting involved with Here We Code, how would they go about that?
Yeah, so I think, to that point, I think, we would love to get to a place where this is kind of running itself, like administratively. The Faculty of Computer Science at Dalhousie is looking after this right now. But we would love it if industry and other institutions kind of started to use this as their own rallying cry, whether that's within their recruitment campaigns or whether that's in, their outreach campaigns. Like, use the branding, come and talk to us about how you might do that to actually benefit what you're trying to achieve. So we would love that. We do have, this is very simple, but we do have a newsletter. People can go on the website and sign up to that, and we keep that list up to date with news from the digital sector in Nova Scotia. There's events that happen throughout the year. We hosted the first Here We Code month last May. Very cool. I guess this May 2022, and we will be doing that again in May 2023. So that was essentially, anything digital happening in that month. We included in an events calendar, supported that with marketing, and kind of used it as an opportunity to showcase like the breadth of opportunities and things that are happening in this space. So we would invite industry or community organisations or other institutions to get involved in that and host something during that month. So that'll be coming up in May 2023.
Okay, May 2023.
Very exciting. Okay, we do have one last question, and let's just play off of the original statement and the first question that we had. But it's everywhere and in unexpected places. So do you have a story, or do you remember a time when something in tech surprised you?
That happens a lot. Yeah,
I'm sure.
It does happen a lot. That's a tough one, actually. Because I think a lot of the stuff, like as I said before, I started working in my role in this sector, I just did not have any appreciation for what technology does other than the technology that I use in my day-to-day.
Right.
And I think there's so many surprising, like from our corner of the world, so many surprising research projects that are happening that I just would not expect. And I think the oceans angle has been really interested for me. Like oceans is, huge focus for Nova Scotia in terms of like research and development and innovation. So some of the research projects that have come out of Dalhousie have been really interesting, even at a simple level of, protecting our fish species by attaching sensors to fish, or to having sensors in the ocean and then actually track it, being able to really within seconds be able to know like the different patterns that fish have, so cool. That we can better protect them. So there's a project being worked on by colleagues at Deep Sense, which is at Dalhousie. They were involved in a project with the Bay of Fundy. So how the tides affect fish, and before anything is implemented in that area, like what do we need to consider with fish movements to make sure that we're not damaging those populations by some of the things that humans are doing in that space. So that, I think that's always surprising, that's unless that technology is being used in those ways, you just wouldn't even think about it.
Right.
And I think COVID as well, some of the positive impacts that technology and technology research has had on public policy throughout COVID. So one of my colleagues, Dr. Rita Oji in the faculty, she worked on a project during COVID that was using different artificial intelligence machine learning models to scan Twitter and the use of certain hashtags related to social isolation, and then using these technology, techniques to, within a matter of minutes, pull trends that were appearing on Twitter in relation to how people were feeling during social isolation. And then she's worked with colleagues in, public health and epidemiology to then report on how people were actually feeling at home, which then can be taken and taken into consideration when developing public policy when things like this happen. Hopefully another pandemic doesn't happen anytime soon, but where events like this may happen again, like what can decision makers do better?
Yeah, we've already got that information. That's so cool. I think like telling those stories almost about like the implications of what computer science actually can do is so important, because like I would never expect to hear like Twitter and computer science in the same sentence, but like very real.
Twitter is one of the biggest tech companies in the world, right. But
but you don't
people
think of it
as a social media company and don't think about kind of what goes on behind the scenes, or what you could what that information, like that's social media platforms are developing huge data sets, and a lot of computer science is around taking those huge data sets and making it easier for humans to be able to interpret that data and use that data in a better way. So if you think about how much data's out there because of social media, computer science can help us use that data to do something good with it.
Yeah, that's very cool, those implications. I'm kind of like you. I don't come from a tech background. I don't come from the tech sphere. And the more I learn about like the back end and like the implications of what computer science can do, the more and more I find myself interested in it. It's cool.
And it is, and it is good for people to hear that, like how it's being applied in everyday real life. So you're like, I'm interested in oceans, I'm interested in computers. You don't have to necessarily pick one or the other. Like you can combine the two and find solutions to everyday problems. So it's super 100%. Exciting.
And even if it's not taking a full computer science degree, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just having that knowledge and maybe upskilling by learning how to code on the side, and then how many more doors that will open. for you to go into something that you're interested in, but have that extra skill set that can help benefit that sector. The opportunities really are endless.
Yeah, I think we should all at least understand the language enough to know how to talk about it at this point, even if someone else has to do the doing on the other end.
Yeah. And that's a lot of our graduates, and this won't be unique to Dalhousie, a lot of our graduates take what they learn during their degree. They might not code when they're actually out in the workforce. They might learn how to code, have that technical foundation by the end of the degree, but their role in the workforce might be project management and managing teams of people who are actually doing the coding. But because they know how technology can be applied and what it can be used for, they're kind of driving teams to do that. So those kind of that's all to say, those other skills, you can't just know how to code and use technology effectively, but those other skills in leading people and communication combined with those technical skills are really, really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's a super exciting time in Nova Scotia, and Here We Code again is celebrating all of it. So love you. Oh my gosh.
Love it.
Love it. Thank you so much for talking about Here We Code with us today.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to All Hands on Tech. Interested in learning more? Visit us on our website at www.digitalnovascotia.com. We'll see you next time.
This
has been
a Podstarter
production.